Hello, everybody. This is Preston Poulter here at Podcast Comics, and today I'm joined by Doug Tenapel.
Hi, Preston. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing well. I've actually I've become convinced I should do a documentary about the stuff I've been talking about here on my channel. So I've been trying to get in touch with maybe some of the people you know back from your comic history. You know, some of the people at DC Comics and whatnot. Now, you and I have known each other for a while, and lately your YouTube channel has just exploded.
I'm a thing.
Yeah, you're a thing. You posted to Twitter, like you earned like $100,000 in the last 30 days or something on YouTube.
Oh, it's more than that now. It's about, I'm clicking in at least 145 grand in 30 days.
I want to say this is easier money than comic books.
Way easier.
Right.
Just way easier. It's like falling out of bed.
Yeah, and I've noticed that you know, the comic creators who get on YouTube and you know they're there and they're drawn whatever, but then they find some niche, whether it's complaining about Star Wars or whatnot, and their channel takes off.
Yeah.
And then they kind of transition from I make comics and here's my YouTube channel to I'm a YouTuber who makes comics, and then eventually I'm a YouTuber and I pay someone else to just make the comic book.
Yeah, yeah, and that temptation is there for me too. I mean, if you're making $100 grand a month,
right,
and comics, this is what's so funny. I was explaining it to a friend. I go, well, I can, if the YouTube thing crashes, I can always just fall back on comics.
Right, and exactly.
And usually, like your dad is all like, "You can go pursue comics, but fall back on something secure." And my fallback is my Indiegogo. But no, I have no intention of abandoning that or anything like that. It'll definitely slow my production down because this is just as far as paying rent goes.
Right.
If 90% of my I would say 80% of my income, and I just split up my 8-hour workday. What percentage goes to comics? What percentage goes to YouTubing? And at least for these months, you know, till my channel either gets wiped out or the audience crashes, I'm going to devote probably at least 60% to YouTubing and 40% to comics, which is enough for me to still do Bigfoot Bill 3 this year. But I won't be doing 2 comics a year, which is what full-timing was doing. And I can also offload a lot of my YouTube work. I'm hiring employees to help edit and do thumbnails, stuff that's just like work that I don't have to be doing.
Right. Your intro is looking pretty slick lately.
Yeah, I love that's the artsiest part of my whole show. That
I noticed.
It's the only thing I really love doing, man, is this intro.
Yeah. So you've been putting out a lot of, I noticed fairly short videos. There was one. I'm gonna call you on this one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I felt it was a little clickbaity. It was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Evidence of second Trump administration. I'm like, and then it turns out Mike Pompeo used the plural on accident, and I'm like, you got 4 minutes out of that.
It's true. It's true. I'm having fun doing it because this is what's neat is because I'm not a journalist.
Right.
I've only said I'm a comic creator, a barely literate comic creator. I'm an armchair commentator. And that's my perspective on everything is I just find stuff and go, Pompeo said administrations. That's just interesting.
But I gotta say, like, if I was, you know, I'm a little detached from politics, but I gotta say, you know, I come from this background of like believing in hard money and the fact that, you know, the US dollar is now just a fiat currency means the government spending will always be out of control because they never have any real motivation to, you know, rein it in. And that we're kind of going to do this inflationary empire thing that the Romans did basically. And, you know, and we've seen
that everyone did.
Yeah, that everyone did. Exactly. And that way I just see like the 2-party system is just rearranging armchairs on the Titanic as, you know, it kind of slowly sinks down. But, you know, Trump came on the scene. I was like, you know what, this feels different. I feel like, you know, the system is kind of a bit upset at this, you know, kind of populist getting in power. And to me, he felt kind of like an Andrew Jackson type of figure. I don't know if you really studied much about Jackson.
Yeah.
But So in that way, I was like kind of more energized, and but still, I was way more jaded than I think a lot of your audience who have been, I think, kind of dyed in the wool regarding.
My audience is way more dyed in the wool even than me, and I'm pretty dyed in the wool.
Right.
So,
although I gotta say, if you're a dyed in the wool Republican, to me, because I can pick and choose, but how do you feel about George W. Bush now?
I still love him.
Okay.
And that's another place where I really part ways with my audience is, I like both Bushes. I like almost all Republicans. It's only until recently that I thought Trump really divided the party. And it really exposed what was wrong with the party and why they couldn't significantly win or do anything, is because it was missing that populist element. And they chose to fight it instead of embrace it. They're still going to try to do a runaround on them. And man, I got news for them, dude.
Right.
That is not that country club conservative thing, which I have that in my past. That is not going to work ever again. It's dead.
All right. So first off, I haven't been studying current events, and I think that's more your bailiwick now. I saw that the House had a second impeachment.
Yeah. So I think they should go for a third in the last couple of days.
Okay. So what's going to happen now? Is that goes to the Senate? But I mean, is there even time for the Senate to?
No, Mitch is rejecting it. They're not going to do it. So they got yet another impeachment on him, but they're not going to remove him from office. Right. If they did put it to vote, this is Nick Rekieta told me this. It takes 2/3 vote, and it would be very hard for them to get that 2/3 to get even enough Republicans to pull off 2/3.
Right.
So it's too divisive. It's obviously it really is a misuse of the impeachment.
Yeah, I don't like it at all because what did Trump do? Right. For this time, like, what did Trump do that you impeached him for? Because it's supposed to be high crimes and misdemeanors.
That's right.
So what did he do that was wrong?
So they're saying that he incited a riot, which he didn't. Again, you have to mind read him a little bit.
Right.
Or a lot. And so they don't have a right to, they're going to have to prove that. And that's another thing about impeachments is it's not a legal case. It's not a legal standing the way that most court cases are. It's like an opinion. So it has a lower bar to pull off impeachment. But, it's not going to go anywhere.
But I was just thinking, like, what a dangerous precedent that would set for the next century, the history of American law, centuries. If we go, the one time a president was removed from office, it was because he said something that caused, a storming of the Capitol, quote unquote. And then, I can imagine people like
he said peacefully assemble, and then everyone erupted. And so he was inciting violence because we know what he really means.
Right. I mean, that would be such a dangerous standard going forward. I don't even understand why the Democrats won't want to do this.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that were on the ground at that rally. Like I was talking to them, and there were some people there who were ready to overthrow America. But most people are peaceful.
Yeah,
they're normal people. Nick Sonata.
Yeah, is that if Trump was to be impeached over incitement, then all the Democrats who were streaming for fighting and rioting, yes, that is absolutely, and that's the other thing is, there's very much a double standard there, but double standard, I just feel that's ordinary politics.
That's all of us, man. Confirmation bias is where it's at.
That's absolutely where it's at.
If I didn't have confirmation bias, I'd have no confirmation at all.
Exactly. But you were talking a little bit before we went on about the QAnon people, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories in just across all of politics. When you hang out with left-wing people, they got their own conspiracy theories.
Well, we saw it all over comics. There's conspiracy theories.
Yes, exactly. So it's like conspiracy theories are kind of inherent, I guess, to the human condition.
It's a personality type.
Right.
And I think the people that are conspiracy theorists will tend to look for that information online because the traditional media isn't going to cover those conspiracies, right? So you're naturally going to gravitate to the dark web and to YouTube. Both sides will, and they'll have their little forums. And you see it in comics too, from the SJWs. They're like, this is what's happening, and these people are doing this, and this is going to be our big plan. And that's very much what the QAnon people talk like too, is just, and it troubles me because I've been all over the dark web. I look at what they point me to and say, have you looked at this? And I just go, that's not what my show's about. It's not, I'm just a regular guy, and I'm not playing into that dark side of the web unless it's confirmed by multiple sources and very clear, and nothing on the fringes really adds up to that. Whereas vote irregularities is far more mainstream and far more, in fact, it's a bipartisan issue that both sides really agree happens. Some kind of voter irregularity happens in every election. I think we all know that. We just don't know to what degree.
Right. And that was what I heard about the last election. Barr said it wasn't that there wasn't fraud, but that there wasn't enough fraud in order to.
Yeah, and they haven't looked at it and done enough forensic auditing to look at it to know how much, whether if there was enough or not. They don't know, and so I can say that clearly. No one knows because they didn't look hard enough. And so you have to look really hard, and it would actually be very good for our voting system to look really hard and definitively say, we know the boundaries of this, and it wasn't enough to sway the election would be very good for us.
And Matthew, MSN doesn't cover anything substantive. So
that's true.
I feel you might even be better off here on YouTube, quite frankly. But
I love it. I love what I see on YouTube. I think it's very good, other than the clamping down on some people.
Yeah, I saw, I didn't have a chance to check it out, but while I was putting, this together, I saw Tim Pool said that Facebook had restricted his YouTube, his Facebook page, effectively banning it. And I mean,
they're much more draconian on Facebook than they are on YouTube. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. Because I remember a few months ago, you were like, Facebook, good. And
my Earthworm Jim fan site, the Doug Tenapel fan site, where I do not talk about politics over there.
Okay.
That still has 170,000 likes. But this is different. The YouTube thing is way more organic and way more. Most of those people don't even know that I made Earthworm Jim. So
right. Okay.
It's a new birth. New thing. From Mars. It came from Mars.
I saw a picture on Twitter of the Trump with the Clintons at the wedding. That's kind of a famous picture, and it said, "This picture contains 3/4 of all the impeachments in American history."
That is good. That is good.
But yeah, it's. I remember growing up and studying American history. And oh wow, there was an impeachment after that was the one time it happened was and it was Andrew Johnson, I want to say, and it was this thing. It was like a trivia fact, like name the only president who's been impeached. But since then, like all of a sudden, it seems like it's an increasingly common occurrence.
Yeah, get used to it.
Right. Yeah, it seems like now this is just a tool in the box. If we don't like what's going on, let's impeach him. And
that goes down to the breakdown of institutions where. And that's why I'm kind of laughing when all of the, some of the mainstream Republicans are saying like this assault, on the Capitol is so unprecedented. I'm going, get used to that, because they normalized riots last year. And now it's expanding that idea set and that belief that, and it's kind of, I attribute a lot of it to relativism, to personal truth, that my truth is above the institution out there. And so there's a lot more attacks on institution, a lot less respect for kind of the cooling factor of politics. People want it now. It's like, we want them impeached now. It's never been done in 6 days, but we're going to do it now,
And Doodle, thank you very much for the super chat. And Doug had earlier said that he's transitioning to devoting more time to YouTube because it's more lucrative. But he views comics as his fallback, like if he gets his channel shut down.
Well, in truth, comics is my A game. I mean, that's why God put me here.
Right.
I love it too much. But when that kind of income comes in, I'm just going, I need to at least follow it a little while longer, and I was lucky to have it between books and not in the middle of production. You know,
Right.
we're about to mail out Earthworm Jim 2, next month. And so that's going to put me in a shipping, thing. And I'll have to take a break from YouTube for that. But I go where the attention is, definitely. And when one of my videos gets 2 million views,
Right.
that's the most, and I'm a mass media artist, that's the most anything that I've done in quite a long time. I'm not going to ignore that. I don't think anyone would, but that's part of why I'm hiring employees to help with the YouTube side. So I can sit here at this table and start on Bigfoot Bill 3.
When you're shipping, I don't want your subscribers to diminish and be lonely. So, I can make a couple of videos for you. You can just upload them. Here you go.
We'll have to push them off. Well, that's the other thing is, like, if now that I have 400,000 subscribers, if I start live streaming on that channel, they're going to be, what the hell is this?
Right. And that was the other thing is I used to come on your channel all the time, and as did a number of other people in like the indie comic thing. You'd be drawing and be talking about thing. Hey, here it is over on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is the question on a lot of people's minds in my audience is, okay, so going forward, what's that going to be?
Going forward, because I still love that audience, that audience was really there for 2 years of I've had my YouTube channel for 10 years.
Right.
And it was languishing, at a few thousand subs until we really started pushing the crowdfunding thing and doing regular shows and regular drawing streams and all that. And that's also, a lot of that came from learning from Comicsgate, how to stream. But, it never really caught on there. And so my audience was always just barely hovering right at, I think, 15,000 subs. But more, forget the subs. The subs is abstract and really doesn't matter. It's the daily views.
Yeah.
And so my daily views, when I would go on and draw, were like 500 to 700 people.
Mm-hmm.
And now my views are 1 million a day.
That's
so how much time am I going to devote to 700 people whom frankly I value, and they're closer to my art, my heart, but I also have a responsibility to those 400,000 subs that I want to service. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break out a second channel. It's going to be my art channel, and what's cool is it's probably going to be bigger than my original Doug Tenapel channel of 15,000 subs. I should be able to lap that almost instantly.
Because you're going to advertise it on the other one, I guess?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the other one and say, hey, all you political wonk people, if you know anyone who's into comics, or if you just want to spend more time with me a day, watching me draw Bigfoot Bill, my comic book, then go sub over there. And it should get me a much bigger audience, and I'll still bring the same old guests over and we'll draw together, and there's less pressure on it to have to be that thing, because I just think it's going to really derail that other channel if I just did you get a bunch of hardcore conservative wonks who they barely even know I'm an artist. And then I'm going to draw for a 2-hour stream and everything's going to be fine. I don't think so. It's just not wise business.
So we have a couple of chat questions. First off, when are you going to get your silver play button?
Nick Rekieta said that you have to have had 100,000 subs for 1 month, and then they reach out to you and ask where to send it. So I haven't really even looked into that yet. I think there's a messaging thing somewhere. I don't know how to use YouTube at all, by the way. I just want you to know. I know nothing about the platform, but somewhere on there, they send you messages and you can click it, and it's like they ask for it. So I got to ask Nick where to find that again. Nick helps me navigate all the tech side of YouTube.
There we go.
He's very good at that.
Isn't Doug afraid that he's going to alienate people who are not full-on right-wingers?
No, I'm not afraid, because this was the big switch that I made last month. Was for 10 years I've tried doing shows that attracted my old Earthworm Jim audience and comic book people. And my dream was maybe to get 50,000 subscribers of them. And I would just work for them all day, right? Well, as soon as they found out I was a Christian or a conservative, half of them would leave because their culture programs them that you don't tolerate this, and you do your giant veto by unsubbing and you leave a nasty comment.
I was in I write for a website, so did Telepaths, and I'm in their Discord, and it's very much like, I don't know if left-leaning comic culture should be described as mainstream, but I was like, hey, you should check out White Lily. It's going to be in comic book stores on the second Wednesday of February. Here it is. It's about, two deadliest female fighter pilots. And someone messaged me. Literally, this happened. The term female is a little problematic. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, thanks you. Thank you very much.
I'm really afraid to lose you.
But, at some point, they start talking about conservatives. I'm like, just so you know, I'm like a small government conservative person. Yeah. And it's like pin drop. Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah, you're libertarian. You're the only one there.
Right.
You're the only one.
And I'm like, look, I let you know so that you would know. I don't seek to impose my values on you. Please don't kill me.
So when I first started doing these more political videos, the first couple of days, I go, okay, I'm gonna try to gain subs.
Right.
The first 2 days I lost 700 subs, and I'm all, what? It's going backwards. It's failing.
Right.
I gotta change this chain, put it back.
Right.
And then it took about 2 weeks, and by then I had doubled my subs. So initially the whiplash on the audience did have an effect.
Right.
So yeah, I lost quite a few, 700 to 1,000 either Earthworm Jim or comic fans or people that didn't want to hear about politics. They have a right to do that. If I do this second art channel, I won't talk politics on it. It's just not the place for it. But this main channel very much is. So instead of trying to get an audience of 50,000 Earthworm Jim subscribers and then have half of them leave anytime I talked about anything remotely political or religious, I tried going for Republican subscribers, and I tell all of them I made Earthworm Jim, and magically none of them leave.
Right.
None of them. So it's all good.
This was a question I had, kind of seeing, Ethan and so on, is, wow, look at all the money they did on their comic books. And, me as a small channel, I still see, some boost to my crowd funds when I'm like, oh, hey, I've got this thing going. You should check it out. And that seems far more effective than just like YouTube advertising. And I also don't have to worry about whether the particular video in question is monetized. I'm like, I know I discussed my comic in that video, so I monetized it for me. Yeah. But have you seen, I don't know if you've even had a chance to test of, here's Earthworm Jim, you should check it out. And does that translate to a lot?
I mentioned it in like 3 of my myriad of videos. And the Earthworm Jim fans that are hardcore Republicans, they came in and bought, but it's maybe $5,000 funding. I really haven't pushed it hard because I feel like this is an inappropriate audience to do that to.
Why do you think that is?
Because how many of 400,000 people are obsessed with comics?
Well, we don't need to talk about obsessed, but just as like hey,
obsessed enough to buy it. I think you have to be a fan to some degree to shake out money out of your pocket. You have to be a pretty serious, I'm into this. That's a big ask. Well, I'm guessing less than 5% of my audience, probably even smaller than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assault 95% of my audience with a comic book advertisement that they're not interested in, to try to gain that 5% to shake money out of them. And that amount of money doesn't even cover 1 day of what I make on YouTube.
Right.
So just from a math standpoint, I should say it's really ass backwards thinking to try to service an old paradigm with a new one that's working. So trying to think old, like, oh, I'll sell these people comics. These are conservative Republican Christians. I'd have an easier time selling them a coffee mug than a comic book.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like, Earthworm Jim is all ages. You can be like, buy it for your kid, leather bound,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll definitely do that on the next campaign. When the next campaign launches, I will mention it on this channel, but it's very different than doing a 2-hour stream, inviting my comic buddies on and drawing in front of 400,000.
Well, yeah, I wasn't suggesting that.
Republicans and saying, hey guys, we're all about comics, right? They're going to be like, nah, not really.
Right.
So it's not, I never expect, and this has been part of my career, right? Is I've always been a conservative Christian, but I've also always been a super hardcore comic artist. But I never had that many conservative Christians buying my work, right? In general, they were woke people or middle people or whatever. Conservative Christians in general, they don't buy comics the way that leftists and SJWs buy comics. I mean, it's just kind of a media savvy.
So you think Comicsgate was wrong and the SJWs do buy comic books?
Well, I mean, I always assume that Marvel and DC are not trying to put more blue-haired gay characters in their comics to chase an audience off. I think they're looking at super movements in America, and they watch Burger King do the rainbow wrapper, and they're saying, we think this is where the hot young money is. Okay. And if you look at Pew Research and you look at where culture's going, that's very much true.
So you think they're doing the right things then?
I don't know if it's the right thing. I'm saying I see why they would think that could be good business for the future if that's the lay of the land.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. I disagree with it, and that I think all those things are wrong. I think environmentalism is a lie, and I think gay marriage is wrong, and I think all those, and subverting the past and not respecting culture and all that stuff. I do think there's a backlash to it, but they're probably thinking, we lose some of these old guys, but we've got people for the rest of their lives, young people coming in with their woke money. And I'm only saying, if it's bad for DC, then why is Nike doing with Kaepernick?
Right.
Why is the NFL leaning into the kneeling? Why is Burger King doing rainbow wrappers? All this stuff.
And this has really been essentially the impetus for this kind of YouTube echo chamber that you and I are rather familiar with, where you've got all these different that are, protesting, or I just call it like the anti-woke crowd.
Yeah.
And that's how I describe it. When Wonder Woman 1984 came out, a person was like, hey, do you want to see that? I'm like, the anti-woke brigade declared it bad. I don't know if that means it is bad, but that's how I address them. And they continually are of the opinion, like, get woke, go broke, and that these people are just making foolish business decisions and ignoring their core customers and all that. But you're saying that maybe there might be some more intelligent thought to it.
I'll tell you the tradition in marketing. I don't know if you remember this, but in Nielsen ratings on TV shows and stuff, and I saw this on my own shows, Cat Scratch for Nickelodeon. The way the Nielsen ratings work, the advertisers almost never care what the 45 and up demographic thinks of a show.
Right.
They're always servicing 25 to 40-year-olds is who they're aiming all of their prime advertising to. And if you do a Pew research of what those people believe, there's a greater number of those people that are on board with the Marxist woke rainbow than there are hardcore conservatives that want to call out Black Lives Matter as a Marxist movement.
Right.
So I'm just saying the tradition of marketing, it makes sense that they did it. I think they may be wrong, but I'm saying when I look at it, I go, oh, of course, that's where they think all the hot money is. Okay.
But one would expect that to translate to sales.
Yeah. And I would think, and I would think it's entirely possible that their sales would have been worse if they didn't attract that money. Okay. I'm only saying, why am I watching Survivor primetime with my family, and every season they have to have, and The Amazing Race, this is family hour, and there's two men kissing.
Right.
Why? Well, there's only one reason, maybe two. It might be that they religiously hold on to it and don't care if they lose money at it because it's their religion, their woke religion, and which you tend not to think of financial concerns if you feel like you're saving the world from racists or whatever.
Right, exactly.
And number two would be a business decision where they go, we looked at all the metrics and this is where the hot money is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fascinating. Now, do you think that the American political system is destabilizing?
Yes.
And what do you think that's going to translate to over the next 8 years?
You know, I don't know. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Because what held the West together was the word and truth and knowledge and empiricism and tradition. And we've never shirked off more of that. It's falling off faster and faster with each generation. The flee from reason, and Francis Schaeffer wrote about this 50 years ago. The people who first saw the postmodern show up, C.S. Lewis said, men without chests, that these are people or relativism, feet firmly planted in midair. Cardinal Ratzinger, before he became Pope Benedict, warned of the dictatorship of relativism, that they all saw this coming. And what it does is it unadheres your average person by the time it trickles down in culture all the way down to the low information voter. It goes all the way down to them, and they know the way that we act and talk. We're no longer adhered to sound argument, the written word, contracts, a handshake, your word meaning something, manners, institutions, all those things. I've never, in our lifetime, we've never seen them undermined like this. So it's troubling to me because I don't know how else you ground a society. You can't ground it in passion.
Right.
You can't ground it in argument. You can't ground it in Darwinism, in the strong survive. Right. You can't ground it in any of those things. And that's where we're going.
I mean, going back to what we were talking about earlier is, okay, Trump's been impeached a second time, but what specific action are you pointing to and going, that right there was the bad thing? And if you can't point to a specific action, then you shouldn't bring the charge.
Yeah. So, and we all laugh at those idiots, right, who come up with that, and no one will follow them. And then you see the giant corporations, GE, Deutsche Bank, going, we won't do business with Trump. We're going to deplatform him. We're going to go after Ted Cruz, put him on a no-fly list. And now there's talking about like vote registries of all Trump voters. We're going to put them on a list. And I go, it's not beyond the imagination that they would start denying service of like MasterCard and your bank. I'm not trying to be paranoid, but I'm only saying you start seeing them, what used to be hushed, and now they're shouting it. So I'm going, go ahead.
Well, Alex Jones obviously is a pretty out there figure, but he is a political pundit. And in response to, his political punditry, he basically got depersoned by more than just YouTube. It was like, MailChimp, and I think even PayPal was like, no.
Yeah. Same with Dick Masterson. If you fall outside of the brackets, they're going to unperson you. They take away your PayPal. They take away your platform. Amazon removes the servers. Oh, the cats.
I'm thinking, do you worry about, yes, you may comment. Do you worry about if you might lose your comic business if you take a political stance that ends up being unpopular, and then Silicon Valley is, because then, like Kickstarter could say, no, we don't want Doug Tenapel because he said the hate thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for that shoe to drop any day. Hold on. Let me let the cat inside.
Okay, sure.
This is dumb. Sorry.
Yeah.
Come here. Kiki, chicken. Want some chicken? Go inside. Chicken. Yeah. Sucker. Okay. I'm so sorry about that.
So yeah, I was just, and great, you're getting a lot of money right now, and that's great, and you should absolutely follow the money. But the idea that you'll fall back on comics if you end up losing your YouTube channel, I'm like, well, whatever the incident is that they might cite that would cause you to lose your YouTube channel might also cause Kickstarter to say no.
Yeah. And this is also, I have a lot of experience in this area, 30 years of being canceled. And this is why I've always called out CG as a giant bullshit, fake conservative, fake cancel culture. A lot of these channels are. They never understood and never even bothered to listen to what I've been through and the experience that I bring to the realm of crowdfunding comics on how to bulletproof yourself from this stuff.
Okay.
And so I have had very real actual attacks on my career where they have destroyed a whole lot of my career too, because of my position on gay marriage. It's why I freaked out so much on Comicsgate, calling me a homophobe. That is an SJW movement. They were too ignorant and stupid to know that. And they led their entire audience to do the same.
Yeah.
So they are SJWs. They've canceled themselves and they need to wake up. I mean, there's a number of platforms and you'll sit there and I sat there and talked to them as they said, you know, I think abortion's okay. And I think there's some environmentalist stuff we have to do. And they're going like, they're sucking at the teat of Marxism going like, yeah. We're going to fight them from the right over at center right over here. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, you're compromised and I don't belong here. I don't belong here because you guys are compromised. And you jumped on top of a lazy dog pile, you idiot. So I always assume I could lose my channels any day. That's always been, my YouTube channel could go away tomorrow. And that goes back to my other philosophy as a born again Christian, is that my God is not money. So I don't serve money and I don't serve power and I don't change what I think, say, and believe because of money and power. Because that is just another idol that tries to get you to sell out your personhood and your individuality to, if they can get you to compromise that, you might as well turn in your art card because you're worthless.
Right.
So they may take it away from me. And I assume when it happens that it is God's will and he wanted that, I don't know why, but he might be moving me into another area. And I don't have a right to to this channel. I don't have a right to get to do comics and make money on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. That's why I'm the happiest guy in the world. I'm thrilled to get to do this now while it lasts. And these are freedoms that likely will get taken away from all of us, including the SJWs, if they don't say the right thing and cry hard enough when Kim Jong-il dies. You know?
Exactly. And, there was a comment that they think that the hammer might fall on you on Kickstarter in a couple of months. I don't know. We'll see. But, that's an interesting perspective. So your 30 years of being canceled, I was expecting you to go, I know how to deal with this. I've got this backup plan. But your backup plan was, well, God, he'll do something.
Well, number one, it's God, but there's other tactics. The Bible says be wise as shrewd as vipers and wise as serpents, or something like that, in dealing with wolves among sheep. And you do have to have some tactics. You can't just go in blind and go, I'm God's, man, let's put the child army up front. I'm not that. Because because he gave us skills and he gave us negotiating navigation also. But I just think I have to play it careful, but you don't want to ever turn over the entire game to them and say, oh, you took away my job. Now there's no alternative. I mean, one example is this YouTube channel is another alternative of mine that I've constructed in a month. And it brought me $140,000 more notoriety than I've ever had in 15 years.
And you've done this on a platform that some would say is a left-leaning SJW kind of platform. So
and dead. And they said there was no growth on YouTube anymore. It was easy to grow back then. I have blown away all of these other channels. I'm going to lap them all.
Right.
I'm not trying to, and I'm not trying to. It's so dumb. I'm just doing, And look at my low production value. I mean, look at me. I'm a 54-year-old man.
I know.
There's no lights. I'm just like,
you are what people want to see. And like there's all right. So going back to, I'll go ahead and put a couple of thoughts together.
Yeah.
Because you were saying you had noticed the lack of principles and the lack of respect for each other and our word and integrity and the truth. Yeah. And you didn't, but like we saw that firsthand in Comicsgate, right? We saw these people who were supposed to be kind of right-leaning. So we've already kind of filtered out the supposedly Marxist element, right? Yeah. So we should have now a bunch of people who ideally, can respect a contract and, have a thirst for the truth and all this. Yeah. And look what happened.
Recognize the imago Dei in the other person.
Right.
Exercise some form of empathy for your fellow businessmen.
And look what happened. Like it has become an absolute, name-calling drama circus. And social media, I think, definitely facilitates that because, like I remember so many conversations. It would be, would you believe what Ethan did? And people go, no, that's genius, you see, because that's what gets the outrage causes people to share and all the other stuff and gets the views. Yeah. So, we observed it firsthand. I don't know if maybe social media is this corrupting influence that is causing a disregard for the truth. Okay. Yeah.
It is. It's, it rewards the mob. Mm-hmm. It rewards outrage and drama. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite YouTube channels was, Hold My Beer. Of people wiping out on skateboards and, jumping their four-wheeler, not quite making it and crashing in a mud pit or whatever. YouTube, there's something in us that wants to see someone else fall. Mm-hmm. And that would be my greatest warning about YouTube fandoms is if you're a Nick Rekieta guy, then you love to see the other guy just eat crap. Right. Or if you're a Vic Mignogna guy, or a Dick Masterson's guy, you like seeing Maddox eat it. Or if you're in Comicsgate, then you want to see, whoever their enemy of the week is, eat it. Yeah. And the whole audience is being ginned up and pointed to those enemies to go abuse them online en masse. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that also, where people are just barraged endlessly online, on Twitter, to a point that they're like scared out of comics or scared out of YouTubing or crying on YouTube and just quitting. So it's not just our little circle. That is everywhere. What people do with their YouTube audience, I think, is often immoral. And you won't see me do that with my audience ever. I don't point my audience. I just try and give them a positive way forward for America. And I don't ever want to even passively have my audience attack individuals. I have enough empathy to know what that feels like, and I don't want anyone else to ever have to feel that.
Yeah. And so I'm editing, and getting the clip. So I know that the Comicsgate crowd is really kind of freaked out. They're not upfront about it, but I can tell that, oh, wow. We're about to have a Biden administration. Yeah. And I wonder, and it's not like
all of us are freaked out by that.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is it's not like Biden needs to sign a bill into law or even issue an executive order about social media. The tech companies that put him there will, probably now knowing, well, the president's not going to do anything, might bring kind of a reign of puritanical terror, which is certainly facilitated by these types of cancel mobs we've already seen. So are we in for a rough 4 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are, but just to encourage you and your audience, I would say, what really changed from January 5th to January 7th? All the people are the same.
Right.
The philosophy is the same. We just flipped the government from one side to another. And I don't give government that much power. Mm-hmm. If you look at what I believe in that gives me great courage as an American is I believe in the people. You've always heard me say, my people have my back. Patriots and free thinkers like you have my back. And some people will turn on you. And I've met a couple friends in the last couple of years who were very close, and they turned on me. And those people, you know, I have nothing but sympathy for.
Right.
They're, you know, they're that I want a uniform from 300.
Yeah.
You know, I'll show you the pass to his weak spot. I'll show you the private messages to his weak spot. But you find out who the great people are, and there's so many great people who will stand. That those people are worth fighting for and dying for. And there's patriots who are great, normal, great people who mow their lawns and weld for a living, and some who even do comics. Who there is no institution that can stop them. I have bad news for the institutions. So for those people who are afraid of this administration that has risen up, I don't fear them. I won't concede the ground and say, oh, you really are the end game. You really are the highest authority in the land. They're at the very least the second highest and probably the third highest. First highest being God, second highest being the people whom the government serves. I think they're in for bad news if they overplay that weak hand much more. America just has it in our blood. It's not going to work.
What you will find is the control of the Justice Department and FBI, along with the entire Congress, gives the party in power almost unlimited power to crush people. And we're not even talking about the social media mobs, but I do have to say that my last 2 years of experience in social media, and particularly with Comicsgate, has in part helped me. It's kind of steeled me for the Biden administration. Like
when that happened to you, I go, they just made you impenetrable.
Right.
They just made you into. That's the old saying of when a man has nothing to lose, you've just created a monster, like a powerful man. They tried to take everything from you, absolute corrupting shame, the foulest stuff that I've ever seen people do to someone in public. And instead, they ended up creating someone far more powerful because they couldn't take you down. If they could get you to quit, they won, but they didn't get you to quit. Now they just created a guy with nothing to lose to tell the truth. Sorry, guys.
Exactly. And I have decided that I'm going to turn this into a documentary because, like I said, the kind of left-leaning website I publish for, so over on the SJW comic side, they're really eating up my Comicsgate stuff. They're like, oh, wow, this is fascinating. I mean, and that might be part of like the zeitgeist of now that these people who are not our core audience, but still an audience, now that they're not living in terror of, oh my God, the Nazis are in charge and Trump is coming to kill us all and put our children in camps, and Kamala Harris and Biden, I feel so good. Now they might actually have the courage to go, oh my gosh, these Proud Boy people, they're crazy. There might be a lot more.
I think also all of Comicsgate would watch that movie.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So
everyone would have a ball.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get in touch, like, with Gail Simone and Mark Wade and people like that. Like, hey, I'll pay you money. Let's have an interview. So we'll see how that goes. But I do feel kind of I guess more ready for the next 4 years. Like I said, when I'm in situations with people who I know, I'm used to cancel mobs, and so when someone starts to come in on it, I'm de-escalating, talking straight to the truth.
Yeah. And the day-to-day, there's the day-to-day that any of us experienced in those attack mobs, where there are some days that are worse. Last year. Than will be under the Biden administration.
Right.
Because the state can't always see you.
Right.
But the online fandom will give it to you every day on all fronts constantly. So I'm only saying just another naysayer coming. You'll never stop me. You don't know what I'm made of, buddy. You crossed the wrong guy. You'll
Yeah.
never stop me.
So I have, I think there may be some hope coming. I choose to look at the more positive future possibility, I suppose, that maybe we'll kind of de-escalate things. But I don't like how many close elections that we've had, starting with Bush Gore. And, that you come down to a court decision about who gets to be in charge. And,
a lot of that came from redistricting, where now politicians only have to target certain counties to barely crawl over the finish line to get the 51%. So a president used to go out and try to get everybody. They'd appeal to everybody. And now they know they can disregard half the people and just kind of target a few areas and just crawl over the finish line with 51%. And you're going to create more division between parties because of that. The close elections do not serve us well.
Right. Exactly. And so I guess what I'm saying is I think we should work on kind of a conservative or right-leaning survival guide for, the next 4 years and the cancel mobs to come and how that's going to work. Yeah.
That's going to be very useful information. That's why I'm Doug Tenapel in Exile.
There you go.
I'm going to show the people how to navigate exile.
Yeah, I like and people have asked me, like, why is he in exile? Why don't you explain that? I don't want to explain that.
Well, it came from the idea of in the book of Daniel, where when the Jews were in exile, Hebrews were in exile, Daniel served a corrupt king, Nebuchadnezzar, one of the most evil kings ever described in all of the Bible. And though he was corrupt, he was troubled all night by these dreams, and he needed someone who could interpret dreams. And God told Daniel that he would tell him what the king's dreams were. So that he would serve the king, right? And the king kind of put out this contest where he had the pagan dream interpreters versus Daniel, and see which one would interpret his dreams, because he didn't tell him what the dream was. You have to tell me what the dream is too.
Right, of course.
And Daniel not only told him what the dream was, but he told him the interpretation.
Oh, wow.
But while he was in prep, Nebuchadnezzar said, we will feed you, because you will eat of the temple courts. And Daniel drew a line. It said that he studied all the books of Babylon, which would be one of the greatest libraries in Earth's history. So was
that the dream where the statue had feet of clay?
Yeah.
Okay, that one, right.
Yeah. Which, by the way, ends up being a prophecy of Christ's coming.
Okay.
So that's just kind of that's the happy ending of the whole thing. Right. But he refused to eat meat sacrificed to idols, and they were going to kill him, but they ended up giving him a pass on that. So he ended up being more robust than the other interpreters. So Daniel drew a line. Just because you're in exile doesn't mean you have no lines. You have no values. He also, because he was well versed in the enemy's writings, I read Das Kapital, and I read, their blogs, and I'm very well versed in Black Lives Matter and in all of their critical race theory and all that. So you have to be well educated on what the enemy believes also, and then you have to take a stand. And what happened? Daniel interprets one of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and it's one of the clearest prophecies of Jesus coming that was on the mouth of one of the most evil kings in the world. God used Daniel in exile, and that's me. All Christians or all free-thinking people in today's society, we're all going in exile. And there's a way to conduct yourself.
And that's where the Christian faith comes in kind of handy, because a lot of it was written by people who were persecuted, politically. And so, there's a lot
my people have always been on the outs. I'm at home.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm at home. They used to feed they used to light the cities with my people's bodies.
And as I like to joke, you're suddenly going to see the Republicans becoming small government conservatives, because there is no more art in small government conservative than a Republican Party out of power.
Yeah, well, they are going in exile in an even bigger way. They're going to go extinct.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think the future is for the Republicans?
I don't see any energy for the Republican. I've been a lifelong Republican. I have never put an X under a Democrat in my life since I started voting in 1984. I have only voted for Republicans. And after what happened with Trump, with the Never Trumpers in the Republican Party, I am leaving the Republican Party for the first time in my life and going independent.
Wow. Okay.
They lost me. They have lost their core. And so all that's going to be left are a few, a much smaller percentage, let's say 50% of the party. They cannot win an election without Trump supporters. They cannot win an election without the populists. And I think you'll see the same kind of split on the left too. The Democrat Party split also. You're going to have the AOC wing and the Nancy Pelosi wing. And it's kind of all the energy is on the outskirts. And the center is a dying buggy whip dinosaur form of politics that is just, it's going to take a while for them to catch up. But there's not going to be energy there. There's not going to be money there. There's not going to be votes and campaigning there. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. So then, all right, given how long these cycles tend to play out, the next presidential election, I was wondering that this morning. I'm like, what is the face of the next Republican candidate going to be? Is it going to be like a, kind of milquetoast, middle of the road person, or is it going to be like a firebrand who's like, Trump was right, and we should have listened,
I think they're going to try to do a Republican, a straight up swampy Republican barn burner first. They're going to try to get a screamer up there, and it's going to land about like a Jeb Bush.
Right,
is about how it's going to go, and then you'll probably have a Ted Cruz taking up the mantle in 2024. We'll see what the midterms do, because I think there'll be a lot of kind of primarying of Republican people. We'll see. It depends on how well.
So when you say primarying, you mean like eliminating, swapping out one Republican for another by voting out the incumbent?
Yeah, it'll be like swapping out, a Mitch McConnell, and possibly even recalls, by the way, organizing recalls before then. The Arizona Maricopa County board right now is organizing a recall of that board, who would not question the votes. They're going to try and run a recall on 4 of the 5 members. And Trump might have the votes to recall every person who voted against his electoral votes. I mean, that's where the heat is. There is no heat in Mitch McConnell world.
Right.
So I don't know what the future is going to look like. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but interesting times ahead. Definitely. And we'll see. It kind of depends on if the populist wing of the Republican Party can stay together. And not go to some of these wacko conspiracy theories, but really find a almost like a Tea Party, a bigger Tea Party movement.
All right, let's go ahead and open a little bit of a controversial question. What's your opinion on the Proud Boys?
The only Proud Boys I've met were all really nice guys. All of them disavowed ethno-nationalism. All of them to a T were horrified at the thought. They were artistic. They were good. So that's all. And I'm a big fan of Gavin McInnes. So that's really all I have to go on. Outside of that, there's a lot of media and a lot of people saying that they're psycho. I have, if I have a criticism of them, it's that they looked like they were going out looking for trouble with Antifa.
Right.
It's certainly their right to walk and march, but if they're making the first strike and going out with baseball bats or something like that, I don't approve that. I'm really speaking out of turn here because I'm not clear on that, but they don't, I can go with my eyes, or I can go by what media says. I'm not going to ever go by what media says. So my eyes tell me they all seem like pretty regular Americans to me.
We have a super chat asking your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard.
I think she's beautiful.
There you
go. Surprisingly grounded for being technically on the other side. So I've rarely disagreed with much of what she said. So,
And thank you very much for the super chat. And
Yeah,
all right,
thanks to all of you.
Yeah, I've kept you for an hour, 59 minutes, coming up on an hour here. So nothing
What a
more.
great show.
Thanks. Yeah, I do my best. And you're a great guy, and I do think that our Comicsgate experiences and dealing with cancel mobs might be of use to other people, in terms of, look, this is coming. You have to be ready for it, because there may be a big cancel mob coming after anybody who is vocally for what they're looking at as for authoritarian fascism.
Yeah, I think you can make a mistake of making too big of a deal about it or too little of a deal about it. I just think it's way over there. It hasn't been my business for 2 years. And I moved on and just really put my head down and worked as hard as I could on what I could do in comics. And I got some good fruits. And you just don't let the outskirts bring you down, because if you're a public figure online, there's always going to be someone kicking you, accusing you of shenanigans and whatever. And you just can't, you have to get a thick skin if you're going to be a public mass media figure, and we are. And so you've been hit in the worst way possible and you survived it. They can't take stuff from you. And I've always felt that this is something Andrew Breitbart taught me back when I first met him. And he was encouraging me, saying, Doug, he goes, once they've taken everything from you, they've freed you. They can't threaten you or scare you anymore. And now they created the world's worst truth teller ever. So he's all, go do that. And that's my message I pass on to other people who've been dogpiled or canceled, is I would say double down all the more on the true things that you believe and be even more vocal and less timid about it. Because the audience there's someone out there looking for that. And they really respect that. They're going, everything else is so crushed down, safe and homogenized. And men especially look up to other men that take a stand and often do dangerous things, socially dangerous things. They go, they have a lot of respect for that. That's always been a quality of manhood, is that a guy is willing to do principled, dangerous things.
Yeah, and my Discord is now full of a lot of people who were part of that cancel mob. You know? And Bean from Pennsylvania, who's in the chat, and hi Bean. She and I were in the Discord having a voice chat, and so many of these people were apologizing to both of us. Like, I remember the thing I did to you and the thing I did to you, and I'm really sorry. And,
the people who went after you,
right? Every
one of them owes you an apology.
Well, thank you.
That was one of the most disgusting things. It just broke so many, like we said, manners.
Right.
It just so broke so many boundaries of manners of the way we ought to conduct ourselves. And the idea that was done against you, no one should have to go through. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it's not right. It's just stupid. I thought you really conducted yourself about as good as a guy can do given the situation. Well, and I just think, what can they do to you? You ought to be create comics on fire, and you and I play D&D every week. You and my son and our other buddy, we play D&D all the time, and I feel like I'm lucky to know you. So.
Yeah. By the way, that guy we play with, he is a money manager, and he made us a fair amount last year. If you're looking for someplace to park that $100,000 you're getting every 30 days.
He's my money man. I have a money guy, and he does me. He's a little too conservative for my likes, but he keeps me from being audited. How's that?
Fair enough.
But he's a good guy. I like, and it could all go away tomorrow. And you know what you have to do? You have to think on your feet and just keep creating. And this is still the greatest country in the world, and there's still good to celebrate. And there's still good people worth fighting for, and it ain't over, man. Long from it. I'm a more satisfied comic book artist than I've ever been in my life. And this YouTube stuff is just candy. It's not, you know, the center of my being or anything. It's just really fun to do.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I thank you very much for your time, and you know, thanks to the chat for all the questions and the super chats. And
Yeah, we'll do this again.
Exactly. Fantastic. All right. This has been Preston Poulter, Pocket Jacks Comics. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Take care.
Oh.